Hey everybody, it's Triple L coming in for my official little breakdown video for Jobless Reincarnation. What episode are we at? It's episode 4. Excellent, episode 4, I believe. Anyway, hey everyone. So this week of Jobless Reincarnation is another week of Paul just showing how much of a scumbag he is. Still love the character. I think for this first bit of the arc, I think he's legitimately my favorite character for the first volume. Just because of all the problems that he gets into. I mean, it's through his faults that we get to see some relatively powerful moments. And again, I do like the showcase of a person with legitimate flaws. And, you know, at the end of the day, Paul is a character that represents growth. And the only way you're going to grow is if you start from a really bad spot. No. Like, some people can grow in a positive way, but it's positive upon positives. Whereas Paul is like vices to positives. And that's a little bit more powerful. But yeah, no, still pretty much into it, and I thought the episode was really nicely done. I enjoyed it. I also read the light novel for this portion, so I know that there's a few little details that ultimately are being left out, but not the worst situation. It's mostly just little background details with Zenith and Rudy and his life with his sisters, and maybe some little insights into Lilia, and I think I'll make a video for that at a later date. Any users, yeah, overall, I think my favorite episode, maybe, you know what, episode 3 is still my favorite, but this one's a close second. Again, Paul, I like seeing the character. I like seeing him mess up. I like seeing the ramifications of his actions. Definitely in terms of anime, like a slice of, this is good slice of life, honestly. Anyway, let's get into the top moments that I thought were a thing for this episode. My first top moment was Lilia being pregnant and the whole line about nobody could ask. I liked it. It was a tense moment. It was awkward. You can feel the tension in the air. I think in terms of how they presented that, it just looked good. I think also the color palette. This is one of those times where like the art really helps out. The art makes everything feel a little bit more surreal. The muted colors, I think, help a long way. I think the way they presented the whole situation and premised the episode, great stuff. Honestly, absolutely great stuff. The awkwardness was definitely there, and I do appreciate the cinematography that occurred to make this moment work. My next top moment was Zenith actually having a measured response. You know, this isn't an anime where you have a woman barking and you turn it into a comedic kind of, you know, like one of those little comedic scenes with the over-exaggerated yelling or something like that. When you have Zenith, they're actually biting her nails. It's like, yeah, this is good. This is really, really good. I take her seriously. Even like, yes, you know, she goes and she hits Paul because he deserves it. He takes a good slap on the cheek. She hits Paul. He deserves it. But everything about it is measured and I think realistic. When you have Zenith there trying to have a measured response, you understand why. It's because the two have been together for what? How old is Rudy? Like 7, 8, 9, 10, something along like that, right? They've been together for such a long time that it makes sense that Zenith would be so conflicted. And then when you see like the actual situation outside, it's winter, sending this woman alone. I believe in the novel, Rudy has a few more things to say about like, yeah, if I sent her alone, this woman's not going to make the trip. And if I was a bandit, I would attack her kind of thing, right? So it was cool because Zenith was taking everything into consideration. My next top moment is just, of course, a funny moment. Lilia knows about Rudy's trophy. So this one is there's a little bit more material that happened for this one in the novel, but I do like it just because it's legitimately, again, funny. Just slot that in there. And I believe that when she found it in the novel, Lilia was telling Rudy like, hey, why didn't you wash it? And Rudy had told her, no, you absolutely can't wash it. And it's just like, oh, Rudy. She had found it when she was cleaning his room, and he thought he had hidden it pretty well, but he was distracted reading, so he didn't notice when she got too closer originally. That's how she ended up finding it. So that was a nice kind of levity moment within a lot of tension. Next up moment was Rudy guiding the conversation where he wanted it to go. The characters do the viewers a favor and they tell us this later because honestly with the Zenith situation, unless you have the characters telling you what was going on there, you may not have fully have understood that the characters knew what Rudy was doing, right? Because if you don't have Lilia saying out loud that she was actually, or like later on saying that she was the one that was in the wrong, that she was the initiator on this one or the temptress on this one, you might have been a little bit confused there. And even here in the anime, you don't really get the sense that Zenith knew Rudy was lying. So there is a little bit more nuance to Zenith's behavior in this particular situation that the anime isn't able to convey because we don't have time. Moving on. Lilia showing weakness in that entire scene. So Mushoku Tensei is very much a show about showing people that legitimately have vices, or people that legitimately aren't perfect the way the anime wants to say people are perfect, right? You have Rudy, he's not a perfect guy. You have Paul, definitely not a perfect guy. So far, Zenith is the nicest person here, but then you had like the situation with Roxy, and then you have the situation with Lilia, right? Lilia, she has her needs. So actually having her say out loud that she has these needs and actually showing that she was having machinations in the background, I thought that was really neat. I think that makes her a better character. Again, the characters here are very much very aware of their own kind of nature, and that's what's usually, that's the nice thing about Jobless Reincarnation. It's not afraid to show the characters having these much more mundane deficiencies that you could expect from real life people. Now I will add, like for Lilia, she was actually very smart. In the light novel, it was revealed that the scene that we see with Paul spying on her, that happened specifically when Zenith was pregnant. So what Lilia had done is that she knew that Paul wasn't getting any of the action, and then she just kind of timed it well enough to only to go after him when the pregnancy was on. So there was actually a lot more calculation coming in from Lilia than what they described here. My next thought moment was Rudy saying he wants to be a cool older brother to Sylphie. I just thought this was adorable. Now, unfortunately, the episode didn't show any more scenes with Rudy and his sisters, but there's a possibility that next week's episode might cover a little bit of it. It depends on how quickly they want to adapt things, honestly. There is some side story material from Volume 1. So since it happens at the end of Volume 1, you know, it depends on how the anime wants to slot it. All they really need to do is make one of the mothers have a flashback scene. Next top moment was Rudy calling Paul a good for nothing, but Rudy saying that he still respects him on the basis that he's a warrior. I thought that was good. I mean, it's important that you call it out. Yeah, he's a womanizer. We've known this about the character for a very long time. He's a womanizer, but he is a good fighter. That is a level of nuanced response that is always good to see. And again, it is good to see that Rudy can acknowledge it. Although you have to remember, Rudy again is also pretty bad, or he was pretty bad. He's doing much better in this current life. But that leads to the whole thing with Rudy calling Paul out and the conversation that played out. So actually, this is what I really enjoyed. You know, in all this debauchery, you have that moment where the two are talking. You have that moment where Rudy is able to call his father out for almost wrecking the family. Good. This is how it should be. Name and shame. You should be shaming him. You should be making him feel like shit. Especially when he says like, really? But we already done it. Like, come on. Like, no. This is 100%. This is totally within the rights. Paul, even though this is a world that might accept polygamy, he is with a person who ultimately made a particular vow to him, and you screwed over that vow. So very worthwhile seeing that. Very worthwhile to get the conversation between the two. You know, yeah, there's that specter of what he did, but it's still nice to see them actually conversating. This is the good stuff that we see with Jobless Reincarnation. The characters actually communicate. Next top moment was Sylphie not wanting Rudy to leave. So this was a top moment for me because, well, it was a pretty scene. When you have Sylphie crying, like the way they animated that, it looked really good. But I am this is one that I would put extra notes on. Because what you ultimately have here, Sylphie is becoming a little bit of a weight on Rudy. Now, mind you, she's a child. You shouldn't really be expecting nuanced thought from a child. Rudy's a 40-year-old man in a child's body. That's different. So it's a little bit unfortunate. Like, yeah, you can see that it's adorable. She legitimately cares. But this makes the situation harder on everyone. Because Sylphie is ultimately playing the role of someone who is holding the kid back. Because what he's doing here, he wants to keep developing. So his initial goal of being the best he could be when he doing his best, it might be kind of hampered by Sylphie here. This is one of those things when the characters grow older. If Sylphie looks back at this moment, this might be something that she would apologize for because she didn't want to be in a situation where she held Rudy back. But again, it's different when you're a kid. You don't really see things that particular way. But this event ends up being a pretty big catalyst for the rest of the episode. And unfortunately for Sylphie, we do end up in a situation where Rudy is torn away from her. And we'll talk more about Sylphie later because Paul had the right, I think, judgment on this one. But before that, my next thought moment was Roxy's update and Ranoa University and everything having to do with Sylphie that led to. So I like seeing Roxy again. It's cool to know that she's off and she got King class, I believe, Water King class. So good that she's still improving, and it was cool to see what she was doing. But with her being in the university, what it essentially did is that it gave Rudy a goal for the next volume, or for the next couple of volumes, depending on what happens in volume 2. So this was good for where it happened. This would have happened like in the last quarter of the volume, so it made sense for it to happen there. Really good stuff. We now have to look towards that university as being something that Rudy eventually touches. We don't really know how that's going to work out with Ghislaine showing up. I think that's how they said it in the episode. But yeah, that leads me to my next thing. When they have the conversation with Sylphie, this is my next top moment. Paul saying or questioning whether or not Rudy taking Sylphie with him is the best thing for Sylphie. So I think he gets it. Sylphie is much too dependent on Rudy. You can't be in a situation where Rudy is doing everything for you, especially when you're a kid. Like, yeah, it's different when you're an adult if you have that kind of relationship, but you can't, like, Sylphie can't be using Rudy as a crutch. She has to be able to stand on her own 2 feet, and that's ultimately what Paul is seeing there. It's not the best thing for Sylphie. Sylphie needs to learn to be self-dependent. She can't be on Rudy actually holding him back like this. I think that's the perspective that Paul came in with on that one. And mind you, like, this isn't a pretty thing. Like, this isn't nice, but this is better for both people to become. Well, I mean, the reality is Rudy would probably become a really strong person if he had to work for both him and Sylphie from a very early age. But again, the issue here is Sylphie's own autonomy, and that's what had to be respected in this particular issue. The reality is this separation period is going to cause both of the characters to grow. My next top moment was Ghislaine arriving and Paul knowing that he couldn't discuss anything with Rudy. So Paul's in a position, and actually everyone in the family is in a position where they know Rudy's too smart for his own good, but he messes up in other areas. So Paul, knowing that he can't deal with Rudy, he does put Rudy in his place, doing that fight with him, and does knock him out, right? But you have to, again, appreciate that the reason that they couldn't have a conversation is because everyone in the family knows that if you let Rudy talk, he's probably going to be able to weasel his way out of things. And so that's more of a testament of respect towards Rudy. And then the subsequent beatdown was more of showing Rudy, hey, you know, just because you can throw some magic doesn't mean you're going to be able to beat everyone. I do want to say for the fight scene was pretty cool, but there was one top moment in me, there was one top moment in there for me, and that was when Rudy trapped Paul in the ground, a very quick moment during the fight. So this was actually pretty cool. It was cool to see how they did that little bit there. Keep an eye on that, because if you notice, we don't really see Rudy develop that particular ability. So keep an eye on this little thing where he manipulates the ground that people stand on. This is actually a really cool little, it's a neat little mechanism that they threw in there. I'm very excited to see the future of that particular spell. It's just going to be neat. Anyway, at the end of the episode, Rudy's with Ghislaine. What are they going to do? Who knows? But it's going to be a wonderful little adventure. At this point, we have finished Volume 1, and we are now moving to Volume 2 of the material. I guess we should talk about Ghislaine. Ghislaine's character design, what else can you say, really? No, she looks pretty awesome. I like the scarring. When you see that Zenith is friendly with her, I would say something like, oh, they probably worked together in the past. That's really what it seems like to me. I'm excited to see how this goes for Rudy. I'm excited to see how much he pervs out on her. I mean, like, obviously, like, if he doesn't perv out on her, what's he doing, right? Anyway, everyone, that's my top moments for Jobless Reincarnation. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty, again, I have praises to sing for it, and my praises are all with Jobless Reincarnation being brave enough to showcase how subtly bad people are. It doesn't have to be like the over dramatic, overhyped, like bigger than life bad that you see in Redo of Healer. This is like just the subtle things, like simple things as a guy breaking his oaths, a simple thing as a guy being a pervert, a simple thing as a girl actively seducing her best friend's husband. You know, like simple things like that, the simple evils. It's cool to see it handled here in a relatively mature manner. And I think that's something that definitely Jobless Reincarnation does much better than the majority of isekais. There's a much more different level of heart. And if it does make people uncomfortable seeing this degree of vulnerability and faults in characters, I think that just goes to show that that's the testament to how relatable these problems are. Yeah, like, you know, you might want to go to anime where the problems are so much more audacious that you can't make that connection to, but these problems are worth depicting as well. Anyway, everyone, let me know what you thought down below, and till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.